Stick with me here, you are about to see how Prince William grabbed Britain's biggest private estate and absolutely wrecked Camilla's perfect peaceful setup. For years, she treated that massive property like her own kingdom. She even put her sister right onto the payroll. She invited her relatives inside whenever she felt like it, and nobody ever had the guts to complain. But then, William took charge and did something absolutely shocking. He kicked every single one of Camilla's family members out. Now her family is furious, demanding their access back. They even started threatening Camilla to fix this massive problem. Trapped and completely desperate, Camilla ran straight to Charles, begging him to just reverse William's extremely harsh decision. But what Charles did next absolutely shocked everyone. That morning, the king chose his own son over his second wife. On the morning of April 26th, 2026, King Charles III walked straight into Buckingham Palace, sat at his royal desk, and signed a legal document that completely destroyed Camilla's entire world. That document was the Transfer of Sovereignty Act Phase 1. It literally handed Prince William absolute complete ownership over the massive Duchy of Cornwall. It is the ultimate private estate packing 135,000 acres of land spread across over 20 different counties in England and Wales. It features wild stretches of Dartmoor, the Isles of Scilly, and super valuable commercial properties inside South London, plus residential developments and huge farm holdings that have generated insane wealth for the royals since the 1300s. In 2026 alone, this duchy made over £1.2 billion a year. Every single penny now belonged to William. But watch closely, because this next part makes it way more than just some basic financial business deal. It was exactly how Camilla found out. The Queen consort herself, the woman who battled for 30 long years to rule the heart of the British monarchy, was not even in the room when her husband officially signed away the country's most powerful private estate. Nobody asked for her opinion, and absolutely nobody offered her the basic courtesy of a quick, simple warning. Instead, a random palace aide just knocked on the door of Clarence's house, handing her a basic written summary of exactly what Charles had already decided and completely finalized. It was that perfectly cold formal notice you normally send straight to a government department. One you barely ever interact with, definitely not the letter you hand to the woman holding the second most powerful seat in the entire royal family. And everyone in the palace instantly knew exactly what this harsh choice meant. This was a message, and Camilla received it with absolute painful clarity. The royal staff around her claimed that right after the aide finally left, Clarence's house literally felt like a building that just had all the oxygen violently sucked away. Camilla stayed dead silent for 3 full hours. No calls, zero appearances, and not a single word to the aide who delivered that document. She completely withdrew, and her staff were too shaken to interrupt her. I know what you are thinking. What was actually inside that devastating document? The answer goes back several years to a red leather envelope that Queen Elizabeth II quietly sealed in late 2021, just as her failing health was beginning to fail. Elizabeth didn't leave that envelope as a sweet sentimental gesture. She left it as a total weapon. Inside was a set of harsh legal instructions that senior courtiers called the Heritage Lock Codicil, which is basically a massive constitutional time bomb designed to blow up under very specific circumstances. The exact trigger in 2026 was Charles's failing health, creating an urgent need to make William the fully empowered heir right before. The situation became a major constitutional emergency. But buried inside that codicil is a heavy clause called the anticipatory obstruction mechanism. And this is the exact clause making Camilla's family completely furious right now. In simple terms, this clause basically built a permanent massive legal wall, right around the duchy's most important heritage estates, ensuring that zero non-blood relatives of the Windsor family could ever commercially develop, financially exploit, easily lease, or gain any institutional foothold across those properties. Elizabeth never once wrote Camilla's name down anywhere inside that document. She didn't need to. Everyone reading it instantly understood exactly who it was built to stop. You might be wondering why Elizabeth would ever go to such extreme legal lengths just to protect William's inheritance. The answer is rooted in a dark truth very few people ever dared to discuss openly. Elizabeth privately harbored a deep lasting unease regarding Camilla's presence inside the royal institution, an intense unease she was way too disciplined to express publicly. But it totally shaped her private decisions in ways that are only now becoming fully visible. Elizabeth watched the affair ruin them in the 1980s and 90s. She watched Diana deteriorate in real time. She made a firm internal decision that while she really could not stop Charles from eventually marrying Camilla, she'd protect their financial heart. Makes you think, right? True queens never ever lose. William's massive inheritance was locked down absolutely tight. Not a single person from Camilla's side could ever touch it. It was the very last move Elizabeth made to guard her grandson. And she masterminded this knowing she wouldn't survive to see it actually happen. Stick with me here because this is where this royal betrayal gets incredibly dark. Camilla actually saw this coming. In the months before Elizabeth passed away, secret whispers hit Camilla's ears through deep palace channels. Top tier constitutional lawyers were very quietly drafting up some massive ironclad legal paperwork tied to the duchy. Panicking, Camilla instantly deployed a middleman to try and find out exactly what was being plotted against her. The response she got, an absolute ice cold rejection. Nobody at that elite level of the royal legal machine was about to let a woman who wasn't even formally queen consort yet snoop through the sealed, highly classified instructions of a reigning monarch, from a living monarch regarding his own grandson's financial empire. The simple fact that Camilla even dared to try tells you absolutely everything about how terrified she already was. She felt it deep in her bones. Elizabeth was actively building something, specifically designed to completely shut her family out, and she couldn't get close enough to stop the bleeding. The final written summary that landed at Clarence's house that Tuesday morning gave Camilla the brutal truth. The inheritance was signed, sealed, and totally untouchable. But what it absolutely did not warn her about, was that William wasn't even close to finished. Taking full ownership of the royal empire was just his opening move. His second strike, way more targeted, deeply personal, and aimed right at the greedy people comfortably living right inside of Camilla's inner circle. Watch closely, because this is where it gets absolutely wild. You are about to see exactly how Prince William ruthlessly dismantled Camilla's world, dropping one family member at a time. The first person in Camilla's circle to feel the ground completely shatter beneath them was her own son, Tom Parker Bowles. Tom had spent almost 20 whole years meticulously crafting a fake public image as one of Britain's absolute most famous food writers and top culinary personalities. All his shiny cookbooks, his fancy restaurant columns, and those big television appearances, all of it secretly carried a massively profitable, completely unspoken cheat code. The simple fact that he was the Queen Consort's biological son. Tom never had to say it out loud. Every person in that elite world already knew exactly what his last name truly meant and exactly which VIP doors it kicked open for him without him ever even having to knock. But back in 2023, something massive dropped. It exposed exactly how deep the Parker Bowles family had been digging their greedy hands into the Duchy of Cornwall's assets way long before Prince William ever took formal control over the estate. A shady private investment group heavily tied to a luxury hospitality company, directly linked to the Shand family that is Camilla's bloodline on her mother's side, suddenly dropped a highly formal commercial development inquiry right onto the desk of the Duchy's management board. These guys were aggressively demanding a long term commercial lease on a prime piece of property located in Kennington South, London. The grand concept they pitched, a hyper exclusive luxury members club centered completely around British aristocratic food heritage. And honestly, right on the surface, it looked perfectly normal business. Underneath the paperwork, however, this greedy investment group had very deliberately constructed an insane maze of fake company names and holding entities. Basically, they built entirely useless shell companies with zero real purpose, other than to completely hide who actually owned the money. It was engineered to scrub the Shand family connection away from anybody reviewing the application. But William's elite estate managers saw straight through the scam, and the inquiry was instantly rejected. Then they dumped the entire massive paper trail, documenting exactly how this shady corporate maze was built to disguise the royal family straight onto William's desk. Now, I know what you're thinking. Absolute game over, right? Well, wait until you hear what that exact paper trail actually revealed next. It turned a moderately bad situation into an absolutely devastating, face slapping moment. Because this was definitely 100% not their first time trying this. A deep audit of older inquiries going back several years exposed a shocking pattern of approaches from random business entities with hidden ties. And after massive effort, investigators traced every single one of them back to that exact same greedy family network. Luckily, not a single one had ever been approved. But seriously, think about what the sheer persistence of those desperate attempts actually proves. It literally proves that Tom's side of the family had been treating the Duchy's billion-dollar commercial property portfolio like their own completely private personal piggy bank for years. They were quietly probing for weaknesses, just waiting patiently for the golden moment when VIP access might finally be granted. Well, that moment never arrived. And after April 2026, it absolutely never would. As if that wasn't damaging enough. When Prince William's ruthless team launched a full scale legal and financial audit of all the Duchy's oldest historical business deals as part of his formal transfer of absolute power. They cracked open the dusty records of Oak Ridge, one of the Duchy's most historically massive agricultural estates, and stumbled onto something insane that had been sitting silently in the paperwork since the 1980s. A shady lease agreement casually signed by a minor royal official decades ago had straight up handed an entire farming cooperative packed completely with documented ties to the Parker Bowles agricultural network down in Wiltshire insane VIP preferential grazing rights. Basically, this meant the absolute right to abuse prime land at a price massively below actual market value. They hoarded Oak Ridge land for a joke of an annual fee that was a fraction of its worth. Technically legal, yes, but you and I know karma always collects. Stick with me here, you and I are about to watch William's team confirm their darkest, long held royal suspicions. Turns out the Parker Bowles family grabbing royal cash wasn't just some recent lucky hustle. Oh no. This scheme went back decades, completely buried in old paperwork nobody ever bothered to check. That shady lease. William cancelled it instantly right after that April 26th ceremony. Palace insiders said this was the exact moment that absolutely shattered things. The already ice cold tension between Kensington Palace and the rest of the royal family turned into an all out silent war. No shouting, just pure hostility. But as bad as that was, what happened to Tom was child's play compared to the absolute devastating hit on Camilla's younger sister, Annabel Elliot. For years, Annabel had practically been chilling in the easiest, most hidden sweet spot in the entire palace. King Charles himself had totally bypassed the rules, directly hiring her as his personal interior design consultant. And that fancy title gave her the ultimate golden ticket, VIP all access passes straight to the most elite royal mansions in the country. Plus, a direct pipeline into the royal bank accounts. She was pulling massive paychecks from the royal budget just to oversee some redecorating at these insane properties, like Highgrove down in Gloucestershire and Burke Hall, that super private Scottish retreat up north where Charles hid away for his most private moments. Meanwhile, financial experts had actually been quietly whispering for years, wondering if those contracts were ever offered up for fair public bidding, like they absolutely legally should be. You know, the normal process where other designers actually get a fair shot to do the job? Or was this just a massive cozy cash grab, funneling royal money directly to the Queen Consort's sister, all heavily protected and rubber stamped by Charles himself? Those valid questions were totally ignored, obviously, because while Charles had the throne and Camilla was untouchable, nobody with real power dared to speak up. Now, pay attention here. You and I need to look closely at how crazy her real power was. At this elite royal level, an interior designer doesn't just casually pick out fancy rugs and paint colors. They are controlling gigantic budgets, bossing around massive construction teams, and basically setting the stage for how kings, presidents, and foreign diplomats see the royal family. The sheer amount of money involved is mind blowing, and the security clearance she got went way beyond just the rooms getting a makeover. She was walking around private royal wings that even top tier palace officials were strictly banned from entering. And she did this for years, fully backed by the crown. The pure value of that insider access and the quiet, heavy influence it gave her entire family was something almost nobody on the outside realized. But then, William took over. He started digging through the royal bank accounts with his brand new authority, and her contracts popped up like red flags. His reaction lightning fast, totally ruthless and cold. He completely killed them. No warnings, no polite phase out period, no saving face for the Queen's sister. Zero dignity left. The deals were just ripped up. Her all access VIP pass to the royal mansions, revoked instantly. But I know what you're thinking, this is just about money, right? No, it goes way deeper. This was deeply personal. It was all about Annabel's house and the dark secrets hidden inside it. Her place was the ultimate safe house, where Charles and Camilla sneaked around for their illicit secret affairs. This happened exactly while Princess Diana was being slowly painfully destroyed from the inside out. All that betrayal. It was entirely sheltered, protected, and hidden right in Annabel's house. William grew up knowing this dark truth, and he has carried that heavy trauma his whole adult life. The kind of pain that literally never fades away ever. So when William finally signed that exact termination paper, he wasn't just firing some fancy royal interior decorator. He was taking a massive swing at the exact dark history that stole everything from him that mattered most. And he brutally shut it down with one pen stroke. On paper, it was just a quiet, boring administrative move, just a standard official email. But in reality, it hit Camilla's family like an absolute world shattering level 10 earthquake. Nobody in her untouchable inner circle had ever seen a brutal reality check hit with this much raw force. What came next was a seriously chilling phone call, and during that call, locked away safely behind closed doors. Over at Clarence's house, the Queen Consort completely lost her mind. The panicked call, the scream, and then. So, what do you and I take from this? The war is on, and Camilla just got hit like a wrecking ball. Stick with me here because the absolute madness that hit her next 30 years of royal life couldn't prepare her for this. Her phone blew up and just wouldn't stop ringing. Tom called first. Mom, you need to do something right now, he begged. You could hear the raw desperation, the sound of a guy watching a lifetime of hard work just start crumbling. This can't happen. You need to talk to Charles immediately. Tom wasn't sugarcoating things. He made it brutally clear that what William was pulling wasn't just about Annabel. It was an attack on all of them. The entire web of shady little deals and alliances built around Camilla's status over the years. And if she didn't fight back immediately, their whole empire would burn. Laura Lopes called next. She was way quieter than her brother, but just as desperate. She piled even more weight onto an already suffocating amount of pressure. It was brutal. But Camilla stayed totally calm through both calls. Keeping her composure is the one superpower she actually has, even when her world is burning. But then Annabel finally called, and absolutely everything shattered. Camilla locked herself inside her private room at Clarence's house. She shut that door tight, and she stayed in there for an entire hour. The staff waiting outside in the hallway couldn't hear the exact words, because Camilla spent 3 straight decades mastering the art of arguing without making a single sound. But halfway through that hour, something snapped. Her voice blasted through that door so hard it froze every single person in the hallway dead in their tracks. It wasn't just yelling, it was a blood curdling scream. You cannot do that. Then the room went dead quiet. Now pay attention, because the heavy silence that followed the staff outside said it felt infinitely worse than the actual scream. When she finally walked out, the woman stepping through that door wasn't the Camilla they recognized. Her face was chalk white, eyes totally glazed over, that flawless, unbreakable mask she wore for 3 straight decades completely shattered to pieces. She looked terrified on a soul crushing level. It was the exact kind of panic that has zero to do with anger and everything to do with pure, raw fear. Something brutal was spoken to her in there. Something that smashed through every defense she ever put up. The staff who saw her in that exact moment said it was like watching a person finally realize the ground beneath their feet had been completely fake this whole time. What actually went down between those two sisters, never officially confirmed. But anyone who knows the intense toxic history of Camilla's family has painted a pretty clear picture of what Annabelle actually dropped on her. For years, Annabelle played the ultimate invisible shield for this Charles and Camilla affair. She offered up her own home, took all the massive risks, and buried their dirty secrets. Back when getting caught meant absolute game over, and her grand prize for all that blind loyalty, it finally arrived as a high status, incredibly lucrative permanent working contract with the royal family itself. And now William wiped it all out with one stroke of a pen. Annabelle simply wasn't the type of person to just take a hit like that lying down. The ultimatum she dropped on her sister appears to have been brutally simple. I know what you're thinking, and yeah, it's blackmail. Fix my status, or I ruin you. Ruin her with what nobody outside knew, but that bone chilling scream and the absolute ghost that walked out of that room proved one thing. Whatever dirt Annabelle had, it was enough to permanently nuke what was left of Camilla's legacy into absolute dust. Just think about the kind of ammo Annabelle really has in her vault. She wasn't just some background character hearing rumors at dinner. No, she was the literal gatekeeper who let Charles and Camilla use her home for their secret meetups over and over again for years. She sat in on the chats, watched the drama unfold, and collected every single secret, while these people honestly thought they were bulletproof. Whatever dark truths were spilled in her living room during that era, whatever wild stuff she witnessed, she locked it all away. And as long as that sweet, sweet royal paycheck kept clearing every month, she had zero reason to use any of that hidden leverage. But the second William shredded those contracts, the game completely changed. After hanging up, Camilla did exactly what she always does when the walls start crushing her. She ran straight to Charles. Except this time she didn't have her usual icy calm. She showed up shaking, terrified, totally stripped of the perfect royal mask. She spent 30 years building. Charles knew it the absolute second she walked in. Camilla dropped into a chair, across from him. That's where we leave it. Trust me, you're going to want to see the fallout over Annabelle's contracts. She explained Tom's whole situation and the absolutely suffocating pressure her family poured on her from every direction. You and I are about to watch a total meltdown. She told him every word of that phone call, looked right at her husband, and begged him to just fix it. Charles, you have to speak to William, she pleaded. Her voice was literally breaking at the edges in this desperate way. She completely could not control. You have to make him understand what he is doing to our family. You have to stop this right now. Charles just sat there with her words for a long, heavy moment, and then he told her no. He said it so quietly, almost gently. And honestly, that gentleness made the rejection even more absolutely crushing. He told her the Transfer of Sovereignty Act was completely irreversible, that the instructions inside that red envelope carried his mother's ultimate sovereign authority, and that nothing any living person could possibly do would ever undo what Elizabeth legally set in stone. My hands are completely tied, Camilla, he told her. There is literally nothing I can do. Camilla just stared at him for a tense moment. Then something totally shifted in her expression. Something that moved way past desperation. It turned into this cold, crystal clear realization that she had been sitting in rooms with this man for actual decades. She knew exactly when he was hiding behind his carefully chosen words. Your hands are tied, she snapped, her voice dropping into something super quiet and dangerously sharp. You signed that entire document without saying a single word to me. You literally sent an aide with a note. Do not tell me your hands were tied. Charles, you folded them. Charles had zero answer for that. Now watch closely because the silence that followed was deafening. What made his refusal so much more intensely bitter was the crazy context behind it. This was the very first time Charles actually threw Camilla's interests under the bus to preserve his own relationship with William. Back during the wild coronation planning in 2023, a massive internal war erupted. Camilla's faction pushed hard for Tom and Laura to get official ceremonial roles in the big event. William's response through his proxies, absolutely brutal. The coronation was strictly a bloodline-only event. Camilla's kids had zero constitutional standing to justify a role. Back then, Charles actually had intervened on her behalf and handed Camilla's side a total victory. But the intense bitterness that move sparked inside William's camp, it never fully healed. And it practically guaranteed William's iron resolve to make completely sure that the next major dynastic power play would go 100% his way. Now it had, and Charles sat across from his wife, basically telling her it was game over. With Charles useless, Camilla desperately turned to the only single option she had left. She started firing off messages through intermediaries and official household channels, desperately trying to arrange a totally private meeting directly with William himself. But William crushed every single attempt with the cold absolute refusal of a guy whose mind is made up. You and I both know he sees zero reason to sit with someone who simply cannot change his mind. And the harder Camilla fought to score that meeting, the more insanely furious her own family became at her complete inability to deliver. Inside the Parker, BS and Shan inner circle, the rage directed at Camilla is hitting a boiling point that the people closest to this wild drama describe as straight up terrifying. They aren't just mad at William, oh no, they are furious at her. She was the magic bridge they used for royal access. Now that bridge is burnt to ash, and they demand to know how she's going to fix this mess. The next few months staring Camilla down are about to be the absolute most punishing era of her entire life inside the House of Windsor. Way more suffocating than the years of massive public hatred right after Diana's tragic death, and way more isolating than the decades she spent waiting for Charles to finally hand her a legitimate title. Because at least in those days she had a real goal to fight toward. Now she is completely trapped, crushed between a family that is literally threatening her on one side and this massive wall of constitutional law that William built specifically to lock them all out. On the other, add in a future king ignoring her calls, and a husband who just folded his hands in defeat. And this right here is the exact detail that should make every single person pay attention. Almost nobody outside that room knows the actual truth of exactly what Annabelle screamed during that hour-long phone call. Nobody really knows what Tom knows, or Laura, or any of those inner circle people who spent 30 entire years standing close enough to this royal relationship to witness wild things that were never meant to be seen. What is absolutely known is that Camilla's family feels 100% betrayed. They believe they sacrificed a ton only to end up being left with absolutely nothing. And get this, one of them already warned Camilla straight to her face that silence is not a permanent condition. If highly explosive information about Camilla suddenly finds its way into the press over these next few months, if buried stories she spent years keeping totally hidden suddenly erupt through sketchy channels that nobody can cleanly trace back to the source, the palace. We'll absolutely know exactly where to start looking. William just built an impenetrable fortress. The law is signed, the deed is done, and he is not moving a single inch. But trust me on this, the most dangerous people right now are not the ones holding constitutional power. Stick with me. They are the ones stuck outside it, furious, cornered, and gripping scandalous secrets that were never supposed to survive this long. And now they have absolutely everything left to lose.